Hello, everyone. This is Donovan Roberts with the Pivotal 18 to 25 podcast. Thank you for joining me again. Today's topic, or the title of today's message, The Art of the Conversation. Before we get started, I would like to read 2 Corinthians chapter 5. At church, we are going through the book of 2 Corinthians. But this particular chapter resonates with me, and I'll tell you why as soon as I'm finished with it. So it's titled The Temporal and the Eternal. For we know that if the earthly tent, which is our house, is torn down, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For indeed in this house we groan, longing to be clothed with our dwelling from heaven, inasmuch as we, having put it on, will not be found naked. For indeed while we are in this tent we groan, being burdened, because we do not want to be unclothed, but to be clothed, so that what is mortal will be swallowed up by life. Now he who prepared us for this very purpose is God, who gave to us the Spirit as a pledge. Therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are of good courage, I say, and prefer rather to be absent from the body than to be at home with the Lord. Therefore, we also have as our ambition, whether at home or absent, to be pleasing to him. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body, according to what he has done, whether good or bad. Therefore, knowing the fear of the Lord, we persuade men, for we are made manifest to God, and I hope that we are made manifest also in your consciences. We are not again commending ourselves to you, but are giving you an occasion to be proud of us, so that you will have an answer for those who take pride in appearance and not in heart. For if we are beside ourselves, it is for God. If we are of sound mind, it is for you. For the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all died. And he died for all, so that they who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him who died and rose again on their behalf. Therefore, from now on, we recognize no one according to the flesh, even though we have known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know him in this way no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creature. The old things passed away. Behold, new things have come. Now all these things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. Namely, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and he has committed to us the word of reconciliation. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making an appeal through us. We beg you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. He made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. This chapter, Paul, he's looking forward to his hope of immortality in the presence of the Lord. So the reason why I like this chapter, I believe it has become my favorite chapter in the Bible, is that there's a pastor by the name of Owen Roberts. I was watching him on YouTube one day, and just the way he read that chapter, I'm like, wow, it's like he brought the Bible to life just by reading that. It was amazing to me. As a believer, we have to remember that, like verse 20 says, therefore we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making an appeal through us. We beg you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. That's just amazing to me. It is very beautiful. So I decided to do the topic for today, the art of the conversation. And what I'm seeing is that because we're in this technological age, which is great and it's fun and everything, but we just don't know how to communicate anymore. We can't hold a conversation. It becomes difficult to, ask for directions, or if you go into a store and it's just like you ask for help and it's just like, hey, well, why are you even asking me for help? And as we can see, it's only going to get worse. I want to reference an article this is from the Huffington Post. This was dated May 7th of 2025. And the title says, Mark Zuckerberg thinks AI friends can solve the loneliness crisis. Here's what what AI experts think. So I'm scrolling, I'm just, glimpsing over it. I mean, the title alone just resonates. AI friends. Um, what about going outside and, first of all, putting down your device, just going for a casual walk and saying hello to people? Or if you go to the gym, you're working out. I know the gym I go to, sometimes, there's a line for certain machines. And hey, you just strike up a conversation. Usually, people have their earphones on, or they just zoned out or whatever. But hey, why not start there? So going through the article, it says, this one sentence here says the tech billionaire also suggested that there may be untapped potential in AI girlfriends and therapists, both of which are a whole different ethical can of worms. Um, you think that may be an issue? I mean, do you really just think? Listen to another podcast early this week. This lady, she's online, which you all may have noticed that what we tend to do now as a society is if we have problems and we can't deal with people, we turn our phones on and we go live, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and we air our grievances. And in this instance, the lady was saying that, she's got to move out of her apartment and, life is just happening to her. But the thing that was striking is that this lady, as much as she has fallen out in favor with a lot of her family members, her dad in particular, she rather talk to Chat GPT versus talking to her father. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. Yes, we disagree with our parents, but wouldn't it be better to talk to your father versus Chat GPT? And the question is, what is Chat GPT going to tell her? So she played a little clip of her conversation. And of course, this is a machine. I doubt seriously, if I was a betting man, that Chat GPT is going to tell her the bad news. And there's a lot of bad, there is bad news. When we go and evangelize every fourth Sunday of the month and we knock on doors, and by God's grace, if someone does open the door, our quote unquote job is not a job, it's an opportunity. We're being obedient to the word, and that obedience is to proclaim the gospel. And proclaiming the gospel, there is bad news that we were all born sinners, condemned to hell, which is a real place, under God's judgment, under God's wrath, because we were born sinners. But the good news is, by repenting and putting our faith and trust in Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone, not of our works, that we will be saved. And like as I read in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, we will spend an eternity with Christ. That is the good news. So Chat GPT will not tell this lady or any one of us that decides to hold a serious conversation with this inanimate object that we are sinners. There's no way. So I'm gonna just be with you for a little bit here, unpack a few things. And first thing, about the art of the conversation. Remember back in sixth grade, I got into trouble, was horsing around, and I had to go show up after school. We had shop class that day, and I don't remember what I was doing, but my shop teacher, I wish I was able to remember his name. He calls me into the shop area, and he's talking to me, and I remember I'm looking at the floor, and what he told me, he was just like, young man, when you speak to someone, you have to look at them in the eyes, not looking at the floor. You have to look at them in the eyes. And I didn't realize that what he was telling me was it was very important. As we see nowadays, you go to talk to someone, we stare all over the place. So if we have our device, our phone in our hands, we're looking at our phones and we're talking. Because we've been told a lot that we can multitask, but we can't. We can't multitask. And now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, that is that has stuck with me over the years. Usually, I was told when you're speaking to someone, especially if you got into trouble and you're looking around and you're fidgeting, it's like, are you trying to formulate a story? Are you lying? What are you doing? Look at someone in the eyes. Kind of a side note here too, a firm handshake, especially during an initial meeting. Of course, you're not going to want to squeeze the person's hand, but look them in the eyes, firm handshake. So you might say, why is conversation important? Well, just mention that. How are you going to get your point across? If you're going on a job interview, this may be your dream job. How are you going to convince this employee to hire you? How are you just going to say, well, I'm all cracked up, I'm it? Is that what you're going to tell them? You may have a stellar resume, but you may be able to say something that may pick their interest and want to give you that follow-up interview. As we know, technology today has helped us to communicate in many different ways. Our cell phones are no longer for making calls. That's been, as I would say, since the iPhone came out in, if I remember correctly, 2008. When was the last time you actually called someone? Usually now, if someone calls you, it's usually something important. A lot of times you just text. I was looking through my text messages just the other day, and I just chuckled to myself. I'm like, wow, a lot of these messages, it's almost like if the person was next to you would just say, hey, look at the cat walking on the hot tin roof, or whatever. But we don't communicate. We have these apps that allow us to send messages in an instant. But you have to ask yourself, do they help us speak effectively? Before cell phones and modern technology, we had to actually talk to people. What a novel idea. It's interesting. I was always a quiet kid, but I would get in trouble at school for just being talkative because once I start talking, it's like I never can shut the spigot off. I just continue to talk and talk and talk some more. Speaking of speaking, how are you in a crowd? Are you more reserved? Are you the one holding up the wall? Are you introducing yourself? Do you feel intimidated? A good friend of ours, Good old Mrs. Shirley. I remember we were at a get together for my wife when she first started her business. And I remember just standing there in the hallway, and Mr. Shirley just went up to this other gentleman and said, "Hi, my name is Mr. Shirley. Nice to meet you." And I just thought, that's just wow. That's just amazing. Over the years, I've learned that if you want something or you need to get someone's attention, you need to say something. To share this with you, I was almost passed up on a lead position at a former job that I had because I was too afraid to go and talk to the manager and tell him that I was interested in that position. It was by God's grace that my coworker actually went and spoke for me. That's why I was able to get that position. What young men, speaking to you, because I was a young man before, by God's grace, I'm older. You have to learn the art of the conversation. And yes, young man, what if you're interested in a young lady? I know that there's these apps out there now where you could be sitting across from her, 20 feet across from her, same auditorium or whatever, and you just go on there and you send a little note, hey, hi, how you doing? Whatever have you. That's not conversating. That's just sending a message. I challenge you to get up, walk over to her, and say hello. It may be a surprise to her that, hey, someone's actually talking to me. Hello, how's it going? You may be in class with her, and whether high school, college, or wherever, strike it, especially beginning of the school year, strike up a conversation. So back to this article here from the Huffington Post. The two things that really bother me with this article, again, I'm not mad at tech, but the thing with AI girlfriends or AI boyfriends or whatever, as we know, with especially you go on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, we get into this cycle of scrolling where we get these dopamine hits. Hey, you see a dog playing in the dirt or jumping off or something. That's funny. You go to the next video and the dog is just laying there and you scroll right past it. So, young man, you have an AI girlfriend, per se, quote unquote girlfriend. She's going to tell you everything that you want to hear versus talking to an actual lady, young lady, that may smile at you or may think you need to get away from her. How are you going to handle that situation? Are you just going to retreat back into your cell phone and just doom scroll? There's a whole life that the Lord has allowed us to be a part of. There is like going outside and getting fresh air. Those of us that work in an office all day, we don't see the sun, we don't get any sun on our skin. How are you going to communicate? Suppose you want to get married. How are you going to take that first step to talk to that young lady and get to know her? Maybe you'll like her, maybe not. What are you going to do? The other part here, therapists, or I see these apps now where you have not only counselors, but the ones where I believe it's a priest or a pastor. I'm not sure. I'm not going to investigate it. Which is, again, I believe, in my humble opinion, that they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. But when you build a relationship with actual people, especially if you're a believer and you have solid relationships with other men in your life that will tell you the truth. They will stand 10 toes down and tell you when you're right, and stand 10 toes down and tell you, brother, you're wrong. You need to seek the Lord. You need wise counsel. Are you going to get that from AI? Or are you going to create something to cater to what you want to hear? Because we love to get our ego stroked. We love to get our ears tickled. Well, we have to be very careful with getting our ears tickled, because that could be the enemy leading you astray. I'll leave you with this as we wrap up this podcast. Conversating, it doesn't hurt. I don't consider myself a great orator by any stretch of the imagination. What I've discovered over the years, I've made some great relationships with people who I care for, people that will tell me when I'm right, but also aren't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. And I can greatly appreciate that. A lot of these relationships started by just going up to the person, talking to them, getting to know them. I treasure these relationships and I thank God for them. Just something for you to think about as we draw this podcast to a close. So, the art of the conversation. When will you start? This is Donovan Roberts with the Pivotal 18 to 25 podcast. Have a blessed evening. Thank you.